Let me tell you something. It is getting harder and harder and harder to justify watching the Minnesota Timberwolves. They just lost their sixth out of their last seventh game, this time to the Toronto Raptors, who, I don't even know how to even explain this game. It's basically the same story every time. And there's no crime in losing to the Toronto Raptors in Toronto because they are the second best team in the Eastern Conference. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year. They gave the Cleveland Cavaliers a hard time, wrapping up the series in 6 games. So they got 2 out of that 6-game series, but when you see the same thing, the same pattern every single game, you know that this team is broken. The Minnesota Timberwolves will get off to a nice start. They have some success in the first quarter. They may probably, most of the time, win the first quarter in terms of points. Okay, then second quarter, they start off okay. Then they don't close the quarter as well as they would like. And all of that momentum that they gained in the first quarter, they just piss it away. And then in the third quarter, they completely collapse. And then in the fourth quarter, they get competitive for like half the quarter, and then they just lay down and die. That's usually their pattern. This game kind of felt the same way with a little different alterations. So, in the first quarter, Minnesota gets off to a 9-2 run. They force Toronto to take a timeout. And from there, they controlled the rest of the first quarter. They win 32-22 after 1. And Wiggins was doing his thing. He was carrying the offense. He had an awesome baseline dunk. He was hitting fadeaway jump shots, reminiscent of Kobe and Michael back in the day. So his offensive game carried the way. Shooting 59% did Minnesota in the first quarter. So then in the second quarter, they're basically controlling the whole game until later towards the end of the half. Carroll hits 3 threes in a row, and Toronto ends the quarter on an 11-0 run, and it's now 59-59 at halftime. So all that good work by Wiggins, by the offense, taking high percentage shots in the first quarter, all that work completely wasted. Completely wasted. And Minnesota was attacking the glass. You had a lot of offensive rebound layup opportunities, and Jang got involved. He was playing well on offense. Levine was doing his thing. He had an impact in the game as well, because Zach LaVine had 29 points. He led the team. Wiggins had 25. So you had good output from your young stars, and they pissed it away. Now, the second half, it was a little different, because first you had a sloppy 6-0 run where Minnesota just wasn't getting back on transition defense. They were not communicating, giving up easy layups, easy dunks, and Thibodeau had to take a timeout to straighten them out. But then once the quarter continued, that's when Karl Anthony Towns took over. At one point in the quarter, he had 10 points. He had an awesome dunk. There was a couple of awesome dunks, actually, according to my notes. And the Wolves got hot, towards the latter part of the third quarter. They made 9 out of 11 field goals at one point, and they retook the lead at 83-82. So then, they had some nice balance there, which is kind of something that they struggle with. Levine was getting involved, and so was Towns. And at the end of the third quarter, the Wolves, they took the lead again. Okay? So they finally retook the lead and held it there going into the final quarter, which is a lot different than what they usually do. They usually fall well behind in the third quarter. This time, they went from 59 all at halftime to then 89-88. Okay, so they went up plus one in that quarter. Then in the fourth quarter, it was a lot of nip and tuck, a lot of guys, Wiggins was getting involved, Bielitsa did his thing, but Toronto kills him with that depth, and at one point there was 11 lead changes in the game. So it was going back and forth for the most part in that first 4 minutes of the fourth quarter. But, Toronto's bench at one point scored 30 points to Minnesota's 22. And I've been saying all along, this bench is terrible. And they've proved it again tonight. So, a real big play, I think, that kind of swung momentum for good was a 4-point play. Chris Dunn, the rookie, he's been struggling to get on the floor consistent minutes. He fouled Kyle Lowry, the point guard for Toronto, and gave up a 3-pointer that went in, and the subsequent foul shot went in. So Chris Dunn was responsible for giving up a 4-point play with 7:17 remaining, and that put Toronto up by 6 at that time. And then from there, Kyle Lowry was doing his thing. DeMar DeRozan had a bad first half. He only made one field goal in the first half, but he ends up with 27 points for the game. So he got his thing together in the second half. And at the time, he hit a dagger 3 with less than 2 minutes to go to put up a 12-point bulge between the Raptors and the Wolves. And at that time, I just tuned out. I don't know, man. I think this Minnesota team, is clearly going nowhere, and they need to make trades. I know that Joakim Noah was involved in trade rumors. You also had Luol Deng. Basically, anybody that played for the Chicago Bulls for the last 6 years has been involved in trade rumors in regards to going to Minnesota. So, they need veterans to keep this team together when the going gets tough. Because right now, when the going gets tough, these guys get flustered. They lose their defensive awareness. I see a lot of layups and dunks that shouldn't be happening. And then offensively, a lot of empty possessions. It's the same junk every single game. And I really struggle. I struggle for reasons to even bother watching this team. So if they don't figure this out, I'm just going to get NBA League Pass and watch something else. Because this is just bad basketball every single night. No bench, no consistency, no defensive communications, empty offensive possessions, and second half letdowns. Other than that, this is a great team to watch. So that's all I've got to say. Football Rob signing off.